Hey everyone, welcome back to K-Korner, the channel where we dive into the wild world of entitled people and their unbelievable stories. Hope you enjoy it, and without further ado, let's go. Approximately 15 years ago, during my time living overseas in a developing country, I'm now residing in the US, a memorable incident unfolded. I was accompanied by my friend, whom I'll refer to as Han, as we embarked on a nighttime drive through the bustling city. It was during this ride that Han received an intense phone call from his older brother, whom we shall call Barry. The conversation seemed to leave Han visibly frustrated. In an effort to assist his brother, Han instructed me to drive to the supermarket near his parents' residence, and I promptly complied. Curiosity piqued, I asked Han about the cause of his distress. He revealed that Barry had apparently become entangled in a physical altercation and required our aid. Determined to uncover the truth and lend our support, I suggested we proceed to the supermarket. Along the way, Han contacted a couple of our friends and implored them to join us there, bolstering our assistance. Now, I understand how this situation may come across like a group of troublemakers looking for a fight. However, allow me to provide some context. The community in which I resided at the time was deeply rooted in tribal traditions. It wasn't a matter of instigating conflict, but rather a cultural norm to stand up for and support friends in need. Admittedly, this mindset seems antiquated in today's world, and I've since distanced myself from it, especially since relocating to the US. Eventually, we arrived at the bustling supermarket, situated in a vibrant area teeming with traffic. We parked our cars near the entrance and positioned ourselves on the street, awaiting Barry's arrival. When he finally emerged, he was visibly furious, yet remarkably composed and focused. Intrigued by the unfolding events, we inquired about the situation, prompting Barry to recount the details. Evidently, Barry and Han's mother had visited the supermarket to purchase some chicken. She had successfully acquired a sealed container of chicken, which she intended to cook for the day. However, upon opening the container at home, an overpowering stench of rot and decay assaulted her senses. Understandably disgusted, she decided to return to the store, inform the management, and exchange the foul-smelling chicken for a fresh one, considering she was a regular customer there. Now, let me emphasize that I know their mother well. She's not the type to cause a scene or act entitled. On the contrary, she's a gentle, amiable lady in her 60s who treats everyone with kindness. Upon entering the store, she located the store manager and politely explained the situation, discreetly requesting a replacement. Regrettably, the manager responded with utmost rudeness, denying any issues with the chicken, refusing an exchange, and even hurling accusations of dishonesty at her. He demanded she leave the premises immediately. Learning of the manager's insults toward his mother, Han's fury reached its peak. Barry informed us that he intended to confront the manager and express his grievances, and he asked us to be present as a show of support should the situation escalate. Agreeing to his request, we positioned ourselves outside, ready to intervene if needed. Barry entered the store, and we watched with a mix of concern and anticipation through the glass door. The conversation between Barry and the manager grew increasingly heated. Barry confronted the manager, questioning if he was the one who had told his mother to leave, and the manager defiantly admitted to it, even shoving Barry away in a fit of anger. Allow me to provide some context on Barry's character. He had always been somewhat notorious, never one to tolerate mistreatment from anyone. While I didn't necessarily condone his approach, I respected his unwavering determination to stand up for himself and those he cared about. It's important to note that he has since mellowed significantly. Within seconds of Barry entering the store and witnessing the manager's belligerent behavior, Barry's rage got the best of him. We watched as he launched into a physical altercation with the manager, and to our surprise, other employees joined in the fray. Chaos erupted as punches were thrown from every direction. Without a second thought, Han, another friend, and I rushed into the store, engaging in the scuffle ourselves. It was a chaotic mess. My memory of the event is hazy, but I recall throwing a few punches at the manager before finding myself inexplicably on the ground, disoriented. Miraculously, nobody sustained significant injury during the ordeal, although we clearly had the upper hand. The aftermath was a scene of utter destruction. Glass shattered, shelves toppled, and product displays lay in ruins. I vividly remember M&M candies scattered across the floor, a symbol of the havoc wrought. We knew immediately that we were in deep trouble. We had essentially vandalized an entire store and physically assaulted its staff. Reluctantly, we exited the store and positioned ourselves in front, hurling expletives and insults at the staff who remained inside. They remained sheltered within the store, knowing that the law would likely favor them within their own property. Now, let me shed light on the absurdity of the laws in that country. As an example, if you were physically assaulted and wished to press charges, you would need to obtain a doctor's note documenting your injury, then visit a police station to initiate the legal proceeding. Strangely enough, the person who assaulted you could reciprocate by pressing charges against you, regardless of their own injuries. If both parties filed charges, both would be imprisoned pending trial, unless bail was granted. It's worth mentioning that acquiring a forged doctor's note in that country was easier than purchasing a tub of sour cream, a shocking reality. Considering this, we understood the urgency of our situation and realized we needed to act swiftly. We made our way to the police station before the supermarket staff arrived and filed a complaint against them. Approximately 15 minutes later, they arrived to do the same. The obnoxious manager and another individual involved in the fight accompanied them. At the police station, I was taken aback by the stark contrast in treatment between us and the supermarket staff. The officers seemed surprisingly friendly towards us while treating the staff members poorly. It left me questioning the situation. Shouldn't we be the ones in handcuffs right now? Unbeknownst to me, something significant had occurred after the fight had ended. While we were outside, venting our frustrations and exchanging heated words, Barry had vanished momentarily. He eventually rejoined us at the police station, but we were unaware of what he had been up to. It turned out that as Barry was leaving the store following the altercation, he had shouted, "My name is Barry X, last name, and I'm not done with you." Coincidentally, a passing police patrol overheard Barry's impassioned outburst and stopped to investigate. Remarkably, one of the officers happened to be a distant cousin of Barry's, an unexpected encounter in our small country. The officer recognized Barry's name amidst the commotion and pulled him aside for a conversation. Barry proceeded to narrate the entire story, detailing how the supermarket had insulted his mother after selling her spoiled chicken and refusing to accept responsibility. To our surprise, the officer also served as an on-duty health and safety inspector. Personally affected by the account, he assured Barry that he would address the matter. Returning to the police station, it became evident that the authorities were favoring our side of the story now that both parties had filed charges. The supermarket staff was promptly confined to a cell while we found ourselves comfortably seated on a couch, sipping coffee. Barry continued to voice his disdain towards the manager. Eventually, an agreement was reached to drop all charges, and we went our separate ways. However, the true revenge was yet to come. The following day, Barry's cousin, the officer and health inspector, visited the supermarket for an inspection. And what they discovered was utterly shocking. Yes, you guessed it right. They found an abundance of improperly stored and completely inedible meat, posing significant health risks. Spoiled dairy products and an abundance of expired items were also uncovered. Shockingly, it was revealed that the store owner had instructed the staff to unplug the fridges and freezers at night to save on electricity costs. The owner had knowingly been selling rotten meat, prioritizing profit over customer safety. As a result of these alarming findings, the store was immediately shut down pending further investigation. The health ministry became involved, imposing a substantial fine that financially crippled the supermarket. Unable to recover from the financial blow, the store remained closed indefinitely and never reopened. It is important to note that the favoritism we experienced at the police station stemmed from Barry's cousin, who had requested leniency for us. This incident underscores the notion that the rule of law is not as significant in that particular country, as demonstrated by the events that unfolded. Please note that I have omitted the name of the country as per your request to maintain anonymity. All I can disclose is that the incident occurred in the Middle East. Thank you for understanding. A little background. I am going to be 30 in a couple of months. I have two older sisters that are half-siblings. We share the same mother. She was married before getting together with my dad. I also have a younger brother that I thought was my full sibling. There are a number of reasons I've wanted to get a DNA test, but never had the guts to do so until recently. I never talked about this with anyone other than my spouse, but 2 years ago I went to my brother and asked if he would do a DNA test with me, which would reveal if we are full or half siblings. I wanted the DNA test because I do not have a father listed on my birth certificate. When my mom was pregnant with me, she didn't tell anyone until she was about 6 months along. She was not with anyone at the time, so family members asked a lot of questions about who the father was, and she never gave it up. No one was there at the hospital when I was born. She has told stories or answered questions I've had as a kid or an adult where things don't really add up, and my mom lies all the time. I honestly won't even believe her if she told me this guy were blue. So 2 months ago, my brother and I finally went forth and did the DNA test. As no surprise, sure enough, we are half siblings. This wasn't shocking to me, but obviously I had a lot of questions. My mom at this point still had no idea we took the test. So I asked my sisters who were 7 and 10 at the time I was born if they knew anything from her pregnancy, when I was born, when I was growing up, etc. They gave me the information they could, as well as another family member. At this point, I called my dad, let him know we took a DNA test, and he told me he always knew and that it would change nothing. Let it be known. It also changes nothing for me. I just wanted to know if my mom was really lying to me all of these years. I started asking questions, piecing together information. Turns out when my mom and dad got together, she was 23, and he was about 12 years old. They were not officially together, but she definitely started the grooming process at that point. He went on to get emancipated and started couch surfing, often living at her house. When he was 17, they broke up. He moved on, and next thing you know, she comes in and says, "I'm 6 months pregnant, and it's yours." She had spent years grooming him and making him whatever she wanted him to be, to the point where he would believe anything she said. He fully believed I was his child, so he moved in. He didn't go to the hospital when I was born because he was underage. He was never listed on my birth certificate because my mom had some story about how it was illegal. Anyways, when I was 3 years old, they officially split, and he started asking for visitation with me. My mom said no, so my dad was going to take it to court, and that's when my mom revealed that he was not the biological father. Knowing this, he went back to be with my mom because that's the only way he would be in my life. A year and a half later, they had my brother and went on to stay together until 2012 when they officially split for good. Never married or anything, but still a very nasty split. My dad also let me know during the time he was living with her off and on after he was emancipated. She would throw parties at the house, and all the young boys in the neighborhood would come over and basically do whatever they wanted. He gave me a name of who my potential father could be. And since all of this has come out, I have had family and friends come to me and give me another name of who it could be. I believe it's either one of these two people, but that's not really what's important here. Having all of this information under my belt, I finally confronted my mom. I told her I did the DNA test, why I did the DNA test, and what the results were. At first she laughed, told me to stop joking, and called me a brat. When I sent her the legitimate results, she said it was impossible. DNA test was wrong, and I needed to do it again. She spent the last 2 months making me feel crazy, telling me the DNA test was incorrect. I did a paternity test as well, which gave the same result, to which she says is wrong. She said my dad somehow forged the results to persuade me away from her. There have been so many lies I have learned over the last 30 years. She is a classic narcissist through and through. Like I mentioned earlier, I didn't do this test because I wanted to know if my dad was my biological father. I wanted to know if my mom truly lied about it for the past 30 years. Family members, friends of hers, and even neighbors I grew up next to have come forward and said she has spoken to them about this years and years ago. Everyone assumed that I already knew and were shocked that I was just now finding out. I have so many emotions regarding all of this. My head is reeling over the fact that I don't know who my biological father is, obviously major trust issues considering my mom lied for 30 years and is still lying. I'm having a little bit of an identity crisis because I'm like, who am I? And it's just been so overwhelming. I'm hoping this is a place I can come to vent, maybe get some support through people who understand crazy parents. And I'd also like a little validation that I'm not crazy and that 2 DNA tests are going to be accurate. This was 16 years ago. I lived in these apartments going on 3 years. Was happy there, had wonderful neighbors. I was always respectful to my neighbors next to me and below me by being quiet in the evenings. And my neighbors deeply appreciated it. Then we had some new renters come in across the parking lot. Same complex. About every Friday night they would have parties. I live in Southern California, and most nights the air is calm. So sound traveled like an amphitheater. I also then had my youngest son, who was a baby. At 11 p.m. to 3, all you could hear was them talking, whooping it up, laughing like they were standing right next to my bed. Yes, the windows were closed. About the fourth weekend, I would call security. They go, talk to them, very little help. Next weekend, same. I finally went over and told them to quit as they were way too loud. They laughed and kept going. Their next-door neighbor said that I needed to be quiet. Couldn't understand how they didn't hear their neighbors. Finally started calling the cops. Next rent payment, I went to the apartment office and complained as I made the payment. The office said I was the problem. At this point, I was done. I started looking around and decided to buy a home. Following week, I made an offer and it was accepted. The office staff told me that they were happy to see me go, as I was a problem on these party nights. After 6 weeks of closing, I pack up and move. My oldest son came to help me. As we were loading up, one of my neighbors who lived next to my apartment and said they envied me as they too were tired of our partying neighbors. The neighbor next door to the party group yells out to me and said, "Good riddance." I rolled my eyes and the nice neighbor asked her what her problem was, as the only disturbance in the area was her neighbor as they had all of their parties. Anyways, 2 months later, I drove to the apartments to find out that every single renter in my building and half from the building next to mine were vacant. Everyone moved because of the party group. The apartment complex finally evicted the renters that were partying. I guess losing one renter was okay, but 16 apartments vacated because of them was too much. This was about $35,000 a month. I spoke with a couple of my old neighbors and found out that when they gave their notice to end their lease, the apartment managers tried talking them into staying. They told them that they were done with the neighbors who partied all the time. It took them a few months to get new renters in, especially after all of the negative reviews they got. Hello, how? I felt reluctant to share this story because I was a bit embarrassed, but now that I'm over something so trivial, I figured y'all might enjoy it. So a new grocery store opened up in our relatively small town early this summer. I've literally only been in it once, grand opening, before this story takes place because it's halfway downtown, and I am a rural resident who would much rather shop at a different location, which is literally the first store upon coming into town. Because of this, I had absolutely no recollection of the employee uniforms, or else would have selected my clothes a touch differently. Well, I walked in with black dress pants, but they were pretty wear and tear along the bottom because everything is either slightly too long or way too short for me, and I never get around to hemming my pants, so they're usually questionable 5 or 6 months down the line. On top of this, I was wearing a black light fleece jacket from my workplace and had the company logo on the front. When I shop, I typically am so focused on what I'm doing, I don't even stray my gaze away at other people outside of a peripheral. Are we going to be in each other's way? And the like? So onwards. I'm sizing up something I'm interested in and start doing math in my head with a little aid of hand gestures. It's kind of like pencil/paper math, the way I envision it, using the blank air to write. I know it's weird, but it works for me. While comparing my needs and wants vis my budget in the freezer foods department, I heard a small hey behind me. Sounded like it was a bit far off, and since anyone who knows me knows to be loud, hearing loss runs in the family, so I'm basically 10 or less years off from needing hearing aids barring high-pitched noises, which you'd think I was a dog with how they bring me to my knees. Or specifically call my name, imagined it was none of my dang business. A slightly frustrated "excuse me" followed a few seconds later. I honest to God thought at that moment, would you just help her? I don't want to hear her annoying tone. I was not in the best of moods, so a lot of stupid things would set me off. Finally, the back of my jacket was being pulled. What in the world? I whip around, shrugging off the hand that held me, and there's this woman somewhere along in her 40s or so about a half-foot taller than me, so I end up staring in the wrong place. She was definitely dressed for summer. After looking up, I'm 5'7", pushing 5'8", so she was fairly taller than me, and catching a death glare. She started spouting off how rude I was for not paying attention, and I should even be reported for ogling her chests. She was wearing a very revealing top. Oh boy. Awkward. Awkward. I can't recall exactly what she wanted. Looking for a specific product, I know that much. But the condescending tone pretty much made everything she said nothing more than static noise, as my anger rose and rose and rose and rose. I finally interrupted her and said, "Look, you witch, I don't work here, so leave me alone." I was about to walk away, but then she grabbed me, lifted me by my jacket, and pushed me up against a freezer door up about a foot, so I'm dangling my footsies in the air. Now legitimately scared, the anger flowing down and out of me instantly. Holy Toledo, she's going to kill me. She leans in and starts barking about what a pathetic piece of trash I am and I'm going to be fired and charged for sexual harassment, and that a loser like I am is going to die alone because no one likes a fatty. I'm overweight but not grossly obese like Jabba the Hutt. More of my general figure doesn't really change shape, no matter how much weight I lose. Unexpectedly, she backs up suddenly and drops me. I don't quite catch the floor, tripping and stumbling along the aisle, my shoulders taking the brunt of it. I had enough senses to control how I fell. Well, lucky me, she got scared because an employee driving a pallet comes around the corner, and just as I'm picking myself up off the floor, she asks if I'm all right, fairly confused about what's going on. I limp over, turn around, and point to the now fleeing entitled woman going around the opposite end of the aisle, and tell her that the woman assaulted me and call the police. She panicky tells me to just stay there and sprints towards the front of the store. The freezer department is isolated as the farthest section of the store. I'm stubborn and disregard staying there and making my way to the front. It takes a few solid minutes, and along the way I hear a lot of commotion. By the time I see anything, the manager is standing in front of the exit, apparently locked, automatic door so they weren't opening, and she was squawking all sorts of nonsense. Other customers see me and rush over to see if I'm okay, and this crazy freaking lady just death glares at me again and says, "I'm just faking it and that I was a disgusting pig who was trying to touch her." The manager speaks up and says, "Well, the police can look over the tapes to see for themselves." Well, the blood drained out of that woman so fast everyone instantly knew she was full of it. About 15 minutes later, the police arrived and spent another half hour doing all the procedure stuff, asking questions, and making statements. They did review the tapes, of course, and asked if I wanted to press charges. I said yes. They still hauled her off into their car, and the manager gave me a $250 gift card. Enjoying the stories yet? If you do, please subscribe, like, and comment. A couple of years back, I was on my local buy-sell app, henceforth named eBay but smaller, looking for a new phone. Came across a few good deals, but none worth mentioning. Then, I saw this seller advertising the phone model I wanted who was willing to do a trade, and for any older model, and at a price range I could afford. Bingo, I foolishly thought. I contacted the seller and arranged a meetup. Due to the shady reputation of sellers on eBay but smaller, meetups are 100s recommended. I made contact with this skinny-looking teen Brad. He takes a look at my phone, charger, and all the usual checks. Once done, he passes me this box sealed with Scotch tape. I don't sense anything amiss at this point, a mistake, and trust this guy. After all, nothing can go wrong at a meetup, right? At this point of time, two strange goons turn up and hang around nearby. I don't really notice them, but they do set off slight alarms in my head due to the fact that they were staring in my direction constantly. I jokingly ask Brad, "These your goons?" And Brad just shrugs and gives a nervous laughter. By this point, I should have sensed something was wrong, but I'm an idiot. After I make the remainder of the payment, $200 of my dollars, Brad says a hurried goodbye and scurries off with goons 1 and 2. What the heck? I open the box of my supposedly new phone to find out it's a reconditioned fake set. By this time, Brad and his goons have left and are supposedly nowhere to be seen. By this point, I'm seething with hellfire. I then thankfully spot the three of them hurriedly getting into a taxi a few meters away from our meeting spot. Idiots do as idiots please, I guess. Unluckily for them, I rode my motorbike over, and within 5 minutes I had committed to memorizing the taxi's plates and was following behind them. Waited for them to stop, got out and confronted the three stooges. Me. "Hey jerks, how about returning my phone and money and we walk away like nothing happened?" Brad. "Well, how did you find us?" He's so scared at this point. Really is a skinny dude and I'm packing 176 pounds of muscle and military training. Now goons 1 and 2 try to square up to me for their poor friend Brad. Unfortunately, They're just as small as he is and not exactly trained to take down a dude twice their size. I calmly repeat my request, only to be met by false bravado and a whole lot of cuss words. By now, a considerable crowd has gathered around us. I spot what I think to be my phone box in a white plastic bag that Gon 2 is holding, and promptly pluck it out of his hand. Goon 1 tries one more time to rush me, but reconsiders once I start to move towards him. Word of advice: bikers use their helmets as a weapon. I give them all a one-finger salute and ride off. But the story doesn't end here, no. Upon checking the contents of the box, I realize I only managed to retrieve my phone charger. Bummer. Brad must have the rest of my valuables on his person. No matter. I count my losses and move on. Now here's where the story gets interesting and a bit sleuthy. I have a friend we shall call Z. Z actually was working as an intern at eBay but smaller, and when I texted him about the incident immediately after, told me to meet him at the nearest police station. Once there, we actually sat down with the coppers and trawled through Facebook until we found all three of the crooks. Seriously, all I needed was to provide Z with a username, and he did the rest. We got full names, addresses, even the schools they went to. So we gave everything to the police, not expecting anything to come out of the investigation. Well, we were wrong. A day after, I got a call from one of the investigating officers telling me that, based on the information we supplied, they managed to track down and arrest all but one of the three idiots. Gun 1 got the tip-off and managed to get away, but got caught on drug charges later. Another story. He then passed me back my old phone, but told me any cash would have to be collected after investigations concluded. Now I thought it was good enough for me. $200 wasn't exactly my life savings, so I was more than willing to write it off. 2 days later, and Brad actually texts me begging me to drop the case against him. I told him I would consider it if he wired me my money back. Once I'm sure the $200 is safely back in my account, I texted him the following: "Shouldn't trust everybody you meet online, buddy," and block him. This happened a few hours ago, and I'm still pissed. I went to see Five Nights at Freddy's last night since it was sold out on Friday and at every theater by me during the daytime. I found a theater by myself that was showing Five Nights at Freddy's well until 11 p.m., so I figured it would be dead. It wasn't really, but still okay. 9:40 p.m. The time where tiny children should be asleep, right? No. Everyone is sitting down, and when the movie starts, the theater goes quiet, till the murmurs of a baby can be heard. A kid around 7 comes in, then a dad, then a screeching baby, and a mom. They came in right as the movie started and were loud the entire time. Now, this kid didn't cry at the jump scares. Instead, it kept making sounds for the entire run of the damn movie. And I mean louder than movie sounds. The people around me were pissed and kept shushing the kid as it waddled and ran up and down the aisle they were in. The parents acted as if we were crazy and kept ignoring their whining, screaming baby as if it would just go away. People would leave, complain, and when movie people came in, we saw hope that they would be asked to leave. Instead, they just looked around for the ear-bleed demon and effed off as if they couldn't locate the screeches. At that point, the kid said, "Mama, goo goo gaga." It's like the kid is right there. The mom took the kid out for like 5 minutes and then came back in loudly and said, "Mama really wants to see the movie, put the kid on the ground and let it continue to run around." The father ignored the kid. The older child seemed unbothered, like I did not hear a peep from that kid the entire time. Crotch Goblin would go quiet for like 10 seconds, enough time for some hope, and then continue to run around, semi-sleep on the chairs, that annoying thing bored kids do, and just be a menace to the theater. And you can feel the vibe in the theater. We aren't scared, we all are pissed. At least I know my route was, since they were right ahead of us, so the screeching wasn't even muffled, it was like eardrum destruction. Then, right as the movie ended, and I mean the first credits came on, even before the pot lights turned back, they were gone. Now they leave. The F? And it just pisses me off so much because screw the parents, screw the theater for allowing this bullcrap. We all pay insane amounts of money just to see a movie. I've waited so damn long for Five Nights at Freddy's and just wanted one nice evening out. And these families come in and the theater people see the babies and say nothing? "Oh, you're going to take your 1-year-old into The Conjuring 2? Happened to me. Yeah, I see nothing wrong with that. In my opinion, Theaters should be for 7+ cause at 7. You should be old enough to just be quiet. I don't really hate babies, even though I dislike kids, because they are too young to understand what being quiet means or what sitting still means. But come on. No one deserves to have their movie ruined by kids. To have kids cry all throughout the beginning of Endgame because Thanos got his stupid head chopped off. Or for kids to screech because the Emperor is scary boo-hoo. He was on screen for 2 seconds and then it was over. Or for kids to ask, why is Batman? 1,000,000 times. PG-13 or 14, it should still mean something. It should mean if your kid ain't 13, they aren't getting in. They don't get to get in and scream and cry throughout a movie. The point of most kids' movies is that scary stuff is limited. And I had this happen when I was a kid, and my grandparents took me to see Pirates of the Caribbean, and Davy Jones scared the F out of me. But you know what they did. They took me home. They didn't let me scream and cry during the whole movie and ruin everyone else's days. They understood I was too young and took me home. It's not that hard. And I get it if you don't have a sitter that sucks, but why would you want to punish everyone else? So, this story didn't happen to me, nor was I a part of it. I told some of my friends I reopened my account, and my friend Annie gave me permission to share her story. So, for some background, Annie is a friend of mine who I met in college. We share classes together. She moved here from China not too long ago, and this story takes place about 6 months after she moved. I say moved, but she's here on a temporary student green card. She's incredibly smart, hardworking, and witty. Just a few of the many things I love about her. She's also a ridiculously good cook and oftentimes makes me some delicious traditional Chinese recipes. Well, while there are many things she loves about the United States, one of her biggest pet peeves is our food industry. Too much grease and not enough actual food, which is why she doesn't usually eat out. Her greatest pet peeve of all is American Chinese food. It should be illegal, which I agree with. I've gotten food poisoning from Chinese takeout more times than I can count. Well, in our area, there's this really cute, authentic Chinese restaurant. The restaurant owner immigrated from China in the late 80s with his family and brought with him all his recipes that have been in his family for years. The restaurant is very popular in our community, and he's doing very good for himself and his family. He's also super friendly and loves to chat with his customers who are mostly Chinese immigrants like himself. Annie loves the place because it reminds her of home, and it tastes like real food we have back at home. Well, one afternoon, Annie and another friend of hers, Liv, decided to treat themselves and eat out, and on this particular afternoon, the restaurant was busier than usual. It's a small place, so not a lot of seating options when it's a full house. One of the waiters asked her if she and her friend wouldn't mind splitting one of the big round tables with a family, mother, father, and their 2 teenage daughters. They agreed because it was a school night and the waiting time was long and didn't want to stay out later than they had to. While the waiter was showing them to their table, he was called away, but told Annie and Liv to continue and seat themselves. They had been there quite often and could easily find their way. The table was also big and was the first one you saw when you walked in, so it really wasn't a hassle. Now, for a bit more detail. Annie was wearing black, which were the employee colors, but she clearly was not wearing a waitressing outfit. She was wearing a cute black sundress, while her friend Liv, who is American by the way, was wearing some fancy burgundy trousers and a matching top. Both of them were clearly not employees. When they both arrived at the table and took a seat, the mom, before either of them could explain the situation, exclaimed, "Finally, we've been waiting a while to give our orders, but our stupid waiter has been too busy running around." I swear he's doing it on purpose. Caught off guard and a bit shocked, both Annie and Liv just kind of stared at the woman, then at each other. I'm afraid I don't. We're ready to order now. I've also never heard of a waiter sitting down to take orders. It comes across very disrespectful. Annie looked at the woman even more confused, and she and one of daughters spoke at the same time. "Mom, I don't think she works here." "Ma'am, I don't work here." "Nonsense. Look at her outfit." "Are you going to take our order or what?" "Do you not speak English? Do I need to speak Chinese?" Hey, I want to order. Get your paper out and take our order." "Honey," the husband bravely tried to intervene. "Please stop. She clearly doesn't work here." "Of course she does. She's Chinese, isn't she? And she's wearing black." "Take our order." The woman sitting to the right of Liv, who is sitting between her and Annie, reaches over her and snaps twice in Annie's face. Don't make me repeat myself, I'll get the owner involved. The snapping is what threw Annie over the edge. She kind of aggressively slaps the woman's hand out of her face. She continued her snapping, just because I'm Chinese doesn't mean I work here. My friend and I are here to eat, and don't ever do that fake crap to anyone you may suspect is Chinese again. It's extremely offensive. Excuse me. Who do you think you are? That is, assault and I'll get you fired or worse, arrested. Now leave before I call the cops and tell the owner I'd like a word with him. I'm sure he'd love to know that one of his employees assaulted a customer. Hey, crazy. My friend doesn't work here. Liv and Annie shared another look, one that clearly read, this chick crazy for some hand. Yeah, Mom, she doesn't work here. All of you shut it. You. The woman points a stern finger at Annie as if she's about to ground her for life. Get out of my sight and get the owner or manager. I don't care who at this point. Just get someone and leave. Again, ma'am, I don't work here. As Annie says this, Liv gets up to fund the waiter and explain the situation. When she arrives back with said waiter, it's to the scene of the woman standing up leaning over Annie while loudly spitting racial slurs at her. Excuse me. Ma'am, what seems to be the problem? The question was directed at Annie, but the crazy mom interrupts. She refused to take our order, assaulted me, and has treated me and my family very disrespectfully. I would like to have a word with the owner. At this point, the woman's husband and 2 daughters look extremely embarrassed and have some variation of their hand on their face looking anywhere but up. The waiter very calmly looks between the woman and Annie. Ma'am, if you couldn't tell, she doesn't work here. She's a customer, and I asked her to split this table with you as we don't have enough seating space at the moment. Don't play games with me, boy. I know for a fact that she does indeed work here. No, I can assure you she doesn't. I know all my employees. She's not one of them. During the crazy woman's rant, she failed to notice that the owner had strolled over to investigate all the commotion. Before she can say anything back, the owner has a conversation with Annie in Chinese where the situation is explained. The woman finally realizes her mistake and turns pale white, trying to explain herself, stammering along the way. Well, you see, I could have sworn. The rest of the table explained what had happened, and without missing a beat, the owner told the woman and her family that they must leave, and if they plan to treat people this way, they better not come back. Annie and Liv were moved to a more private table, and they got a free meal that night. They continue to eat there till this day. I've even been myself. The woman, as far as Annie knows, hasn't shown up since. Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more captivating stories. Share your own experiences, opinions in the comments below, and let's keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay tuned for more epic tales.